Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. We're going to celebrate Dungeons & Dragons with the greatest Dungeons & Dragons story of 2023, which is Legends of Vox Machina Season 2. We're going to continue to dig in and discuss the Chroma Conclave, and today we're going to discuss the ancient green dragon, Raishan, the diseased Deceiver, whose breath weapon is poison. All right, so we're incredibly blessed. The best D&D canon hardback author out there right now, Matthew Mercer, bringing 100% D&D energy to illustrate what Gary Gygax carried for. So the Dungeons & Dragons dragon is really special. Right, it was created by Gary Gygax. It was carried forward by Lorraine Williams. It was carried forward by Ryan Dancey. It was carried forward by Rob Hainsou. It is carried forward by Christopher Perkins, individually by rule and design, right? And it's a big deal because essentially ownership of fantasy, capital F fantasy, general fantasy, right, has shifted from Britain to America. It was owned by Britain under its champion Tolkien, right? Gygax came along and said, "Okay, I see you, Tolkien, and I'm gonna use your inspiration to build Dungeons and Dragons. And Dungeons and Dragons is gonna build a dragon that is far more dangerous than anything that ever appeared in a Tolkien book, right? Smaug is like one dragon, and Bard the Bowman with a single arrow, placed, between the scales, a magical arrow, a black arrow, right? Takes it down. And, and now there's this echo of Matthew Mercer, who is a dyed-in-the-wool Gary Gygax, essentially inspired by him. Essentially, I really think he's a follower of Gary Gygax in many ways. Is carrying this tradition of saying, fantasy belongs to America now, through Gary Gygax, through Lorraine Williams, through Ryan Dancey, through Robert Hainsou, through Christopher Perkins, directly to Matthew Mercer. And this is a treasure crafted and created and carried through time, right? And when you look at Raishan, you are looking at the new modern dragon, far more dangerous than anything Tolkien ever wrote, and frankly better, right? The Chroma Conclave is a step up and saying this is what real fantasy is today. Not that crusty old junk from 1940s, right? With a couple of halflings. This is real modern fantasy, right? And that's what Gary's gift to us is today in current Dungeons and Dragons, in Hasbro Dungeons and Dragons, right? And that's the one that has the legacy. That's the one that has Gygax's, blood, sweat, and tears, and where his legacy echoes today, and absolutely nowhere else, right? And this is the issue, right? Yeah, you know what? Let's celebrate Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to stay on here. So Raishan is. So let's talk about Raishan, right? Raishan is an ancient green. He is huge and he is massively dangerous in a really, I'm sorry, I think Raishan is a female, right? So Raishan, she is a huge ancient green, and she is wickedly dangerous, right? And her breath weapon is poison. And so we actually see in, spoilers for Legends of Vox Machina Season 2 here, we see the king, this Exandrian king is absolutely killed, right? Slain by, because a king is slain, a king isn't killed, right? Is slain by Raishan, right? And I think what's really fascinating about Raishan is she shows you exactly how incredibly deadly these dragons are, in that, so just think of the Chroma Conclave, right? They arrive at your city, and you could die by being crushed by ice, being frozen in ice, being burned to ash, right? Like just literally everything you are just blowing away in the wind, right? You can drown in a pool of acid, right? Like you can, or your bones can bake all the flesh on your body through lightning, right? But last, right, you could dodge lightning, right? You could dodge acid. You might be able to dodge the block of ice, right? But the building might, break down. It might kill you that broke down from just the impact, right? You might, all these other, fire and acid and lightning and ice, these things can be blocked. But these poisonous gas clouds literally pursue. They like balloon out like a cloud. This slow, subtle, silent death. And it is horrifying. It is just like, you look at Raishan and you're like, this is incredibly deadly, right? In addition to that, Raishan is known as the diseased Deceiver, right? And and just like Brimscythe, masqueraded as a human and was incredibly deadly, corrupting the council of the king in Exandria, right? Incredibly deadly, right? Not even in its final form, not even in its dragon form, right? Literally just corrupting the council by posing as a human. Raishan does the same. She has human forms, multiple human forms, and she can absolutely destroy and reap. Like, she can starve cities, right? With just by making sure a shipment doesn't arrive. Like, these dragons are so much more deadly than anything Tolkien ever put on the board. And Raishan is this really incredibly powerful, really like just this massive reminder, right, of a few things. Tolkien's done. Fantasy belongs to America, thanks to Gary Gygax, thanks to Lorraine Williams, thanks to Ryan Dancey, thanks to Rob Hainsou, thanks to Christopher Perkins, thanks to Matthew Mercer, right? This better concept built by Gary, carried forward by everybody else I talked about, and illustrated perfectly by Matthew Mercer, the greatest champion of Dungeons & Dragons today, right? Which is really incredible. And so Raishan is really powerful, and it's awesome. I'm so excited about Legends of Vox Machina, the best Dungeons & Dragons story of 2023. It is amazing. So if you're one of the stalwart remnants, if you're still one of the people who's trying to find out a way to secretly buy your physical book from your FLGS because you know there'll be persecution the moment you walk in the door, right? If you're one of the stalwart remnant who still says D&D forever, Legends of Vox Machina is for you. And you can go over there and you can watch it and you can celebrate the thing that we've been celebrating from 1974, even though the Orc, even though the OGL, and even though the OSR is forbidding you. You can defy them all. You could say, I am not going to fall under your D&D Beyond banner. I say D&D Beyond prejudice, D&D Beyond persecution. And, I've lived through persecution before, 1983. I recognize this persecution now for exactly what it was in 1983. And I'd like to tell you I'm not frightened. I'm still scared. I'm still frightened. I am still losing sleep, right? And I think there are going to be some very harsh realities as we move forward. But I have hope, because there are people in the comments coming in saying, hey, you're not the only one. You're not the only one who's still willing to celebrate Dungeons & Dragons. Thank goodness for Matthew Mercer. Thanks goodness for Legends of Vox Machina Season 3. Thanks goodness for Raishan, the diseased Deceiver. And thank goodness for the new American dragon, the best dragon that's ever been. And Britain is put down again. Like, we beat him before, we'll beat him again. Right? Beat him on the actual, the quite literal battlefield, and we'll beat them on the virtual battlefield of creativity as well. All that is my humble opinion. I'm very eager to hear your humble opinion. Please consider getting into the comments and sending your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.